Dr. Frazier. Some of you guys know Dr. Frazier. He's been here several times. He is now family. True that. He's family. And I like always to talk about him because he's done so much. And you need to know who your people are, who are doing stuff, okay? The man's written, I can't even keep up with that. How many books have you written?
24.
24.
Yeah, 24.
Lord, I'm trying to get a dissertation done. You got 24 books out here.
And I'm missing, I have 8 of them, so I'm missing, what's that, 16.
Yeah. And see, he found his gift, he found his purpose. This man was self-determined. He's got high self-esteem. And when those things, like I say, when all that stuff is working for you, you can write 24 books. And he's still a young man, look at him. He's got 100 more books to write, okay? Wow. There you go. So, and he was president, vice president, and president at Morris Brown. You know, he teaches chemistry.
Is that why he closed?
Keep in your mouth.
He's an academician, he's a scholar, he's a gentleman, and he just loves everybody. And I want to go ahead and give him a big old
All right, thank you. It is really exciting being here on this morning. And as James said, I'm a member of the family. And I do not take that lightly. I am a member of the family. It is such an honor, always, to walk in the doors and to be a part of common ground and don't mention those cruise times of just having a super time together and laughing and just enjoying the presence of each other. So it's really wonderful to be here. You know, my name has evolved over the last 5 years. If you're on Facebook with me, and I'd love to be Facebook friends with you, by the way. My name is Nana Kwame Adebowale Bessanta Leroy Frazier. Now those first 5 parts of it.
Excuse me, one moment.
Yes.
I forgot to tell y'all, there's pencil and paper in front of you. Feel free to use that. And like I say, just like when he's saying his name, that's what made me think I wanted to write his name.
Try who made the spell.
You can always ask them, or you can try your best. That's the reason for the paper. It's scratch paper.
I was gladly spelling it, maybe. It's Nana, N-A-N-A, Kwame, K-W-A-M-E, Adebowale, A-D-E-B-O-W-A-L-E, Bessanta, B-E-S-S-A-N-T-A, Makota, M-A-K-O-T-A, and then Leroy, L-E-R-O-Y, and Frazier, F-R-A-Z-I-E-R. And there's a great meaning for that name in terms of how it evolved. I have been able to trace my African ancestry that goes back to 4 different countries: Angola, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, and Nigeria. So each time I talk about or go to these countries or engage in conversation, it is true that I plan to move to the continent of Africa in the latter part of 2017. Now there's a lot of competition going on in Africa because South Africa is saying, well, you need to come to be with us. Now my ancestry doesn't quite connect back to South Africa right now, but I sure do like their liberalism. Angola, and the other four countries. Ghana is the country that I have chosen up to this point, and I have been able to build, and this is about self-determination too, I've been able to build networks in Ghana, which means that if I move there, I already have a network of friends, a network of relatives, distant relatives, and churches, and you name it. Just as here in the USA, I have it in Ghana.
Wow.
And I speak to, when I wake up in the morning, it's a Ghana man that is saying hello. Did you all absorb that?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought, but anyway, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and now to get back to this whole thing of self-determination, let me just say again, hello there.
Dr. Frazier, one quick question.
Yeah.
Before we get really into the self-determination again, when you mentioned that you trace your ancestry,
Yes.
real quick, could you tell them how you did that?
Through a little saliva, a little swab of saliva, and put it in a tube and sending it off. It costs about $150 to $200. Send it in, and it came back because I am male. It connects through my father's line, and it connected all the way back to Guinea-Bissau.
Wow.
Now, Guinea-Bissau, now on Facebook, we've created a page specifically for getting to know people. Guinea-Bissau is planning a trip for me to come there to meet my distant cousins next year. They speak Portuguese, but a few of them speak English, so I always have translators with me when I go. But that whole network in terms of Guinea-Bissau, which my blood is over 90% Bessanta. Bessanta are the people that refused to be enslaved, and even though a few of them were, which included my family, they would break out of the cells in order to prevent from being captured. Also, they are the people that resented colonialism. And all of the other tribes in Guinea-Bissau went through colonialism, but the Bessanta people, my people, refused. And so I'm going there to connect with, in spirit with them, and just really look forward to the experience. And while there, I plan, this is all about self-determination. I'm so close to Senegal, and I'm so close to the Gambia, that I plan to visit all three of those countries during the same visit with a network in each one of these countries. So everywhere I go, I have a bed to sleep in, I have food, I have everything. Everything is planned. I have no staff members working with me. All of my travel internationally is operated in terms of my own connecting with people. So once I arrive to wherever I'm going, the entire trip is organized. There are families, there are beds, there are tables, there are food and everything. One thing that I do regret sometimes when I'm coming back from the country is that everything has already been provided. The food, when you get up in the morning, you just sit down at the table and they bring the food to you. The washing is already done. The going to the church and arrangement for trips and things of that sort, everything is well designed and well planned. This is a part of that new life of Leroy, and I'm going to get to some questions in a few minutes, but it'll explain to you how I got there. Now the journey has been quite interesting. The journey. My first book was Journey into My Soul. The last book was Expanding Consciousness up to higher and higher levels. And as you expand this consciousness, you begin to see life in bigger and better ways. And so I think about this experience on this morning. And Mother Bessie, I'm so glad to see you, because as I was traveling here on today, I was looking at each car, and I said, well, is that Mother Bessie? And then when I parked, there was a car that had parked, and I said, well, that must be Mother Bessie. But it was not you, but I'm glad to see you here. Self-determination, you know, self-determination. I'm going to say a few words, then I'm going to open things up. At the age of 5, my father started me in the cotton field. This was a year before I started school, at the age of 5. I was behind a mule. How many of you know what a mule is?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a mule. Okay. I was behind a mule, and there was this harrow that breaks up the ground. Once it had been middle buster, it had broken the ground, it sort of take the soil and sort of spread it out. So I was behind this mule at the age of 5, a year before I started school, first grade. And I didn't know anything else because the community that I grew up in, if you traveled 2 or 3 miles from your home, you had gone somewhere, even though you had gone nowhere. So, but it was a joy to travel. And I remember one time, my father was fortunate to have a truck. It was a 1950 Ford pickup. And we had traveled to town. Town was about 7 miles away from where we lived. Well, that old truck got to the middle of town.
Broke down.
And it would not crank.
Oh.
My mother was in the truck, I was in the truck, my brothers were there. And my mother is this short lady who is still living now. She turns 90 this year. But my father says to her, "Get out! You know you got to push." Mama said, "What?" And all of us, not wanting to be seen by all of our friends in town, that we have to push this 1950 Ford in order to get it started so we can go home. But those are the types of experiences, you know, missing 30 and 40 days out of school, but yet coming back, and then sometimes 50 days out of school as this little boy, and then coming back, and at the end of 12 years, becoming the valedictorian of the class.
All right, all right.
I was not one of those that was in class all the time. I was in the field. In cold days like this, rather than picking the cotton, we were pulling it.
And Dr. Frazier, where was that? Where were you living at the time?
This was in Mississippi. It was in Hernando, Mississippi, just 10 or 15 miles outside of Memphis.
Tell about what your mom, maybe some of them know about what your mom
She was
taught
the
you.
fastest
They help
worm picker in the county. And she made a lot of money doing it. Now when I say worms, these were earthworms that you use to fish. There was a fish farm that was there, and she was the fastest worm picker. The more worms you picked, the more you got paid. So she was the best paid person on that. She left the field one year and went to the worm thing the next year and started making money. And of course my father left the farm in 67 or 68, and then he went into construction. The first car that the family owned, a new car, was in 1969.
All right.
That was the last year of my high school, 69 going into 70. My father had bought a new 1969 Malibu.
All right.
I didn't know how to drive, and I was a senior in high school. Self-determination. And during this time, I was trying to get my driver's license. I didn't know how to back up in the car and all of this, but somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to do it. Now I have my license.
Wow.
Now we're on the expressway. I have both hands on the steering wheel. And I thought the way you drive is that you just keep turning like this. So, as I was turning like this, the car kept going to this side of the expressway, to this side of the expressway. And I said, there's got to be a better way. Going now into courtship. There are these girls I've got to take out. I didn't know how to drive. I didn't want to run from one side of the expressway to the other side. My brother, my older brother, could drive, and he was a quiet gentleman. The way we arranged it was, because he didn't talk that much, I was chosen to go with him to his girlfriend's house. I would do the talking. And then when we finished with that, then he would have to take me to my girlfriend.
Okay.
Wow.
And so it was quite a long night experience on a Sunday night. But at that time, you had to be out of the girl's house at a certain time. And so when it was time for you to leave, the father of the girl would walk through, not say anything, just walk through. That was your sign that it was time for you to go. Those are the type of opening comments that I have. And self-determination, I really would like to first ask you a question about the two words, the self and the determination. How do you define self, looking at yourself? How do you define self? We all know each other.
For me, they already made me call hot chocolate.
Oh, Lord.
All right? Hot chocolate. Because this word is very important. How do you define the self? It is what?
Who I am.
It is who I am.
My mind,
It is
my body,
all
my
of
spirit.
this that is inside of me. That which makes up me. That is the self. And when I say me, you're saying the same thing. That which makes up you would be the self. The determination is something that you see. It is something that you desire. It is a place where you want to be. It is a going out of a situation that might be bad and going into a better situation. It is creating a condition that leads you from one step to a higher step. So this self-determination says that inside of me, there is something that says that I don't want to be in the same place or the same situation all the time.
Amen.
I want to wake up the next morning feeling that I'm in a better place than I was, situation or whatever, than I was yesterday. Or I want to be in a better situation 1 year from now than I am in today. So it is about looking within, looking away from the external, not being persuaded by what's on the outside of you, regardless of whether that on the outside of you would be your partner or whatever. You know within yourself who you are, and you are moving in the direction, and every day you are experiencing and knowing that you are climbing higher. By the way, that is the title of my autobiography, Climbing Higher. That was published on last year, Climbing Higher. It was all about self-determination. It was all about all of these stories that I have told and so many more on this self-determination. Self-determination requires a clear purpose. It requires a clear focus. It requires you knowing exactly who you are and knowing exactly what it is that you desire, and that you are on your road in motion, on your way to whatever that point is, or whatever that new situation is, or that new circumstance. I open it up now. Yes.
I just want to say, one of the things I think, and we as a culture, where we get lost in the self-determination piece is, every other culture ties their spirituality and religion to their culture. So they're tied into, like the Jews, that's a culture and a religion. I mean, and a religion. The Israelite, everything's tied together. We separate, we have a choice here. We don't have to look at spirituality or religion.
Absolutely.
We don't have to. And so we separate that piece out, and we go at it on our own when it comes to the culture piece. You know what I'm trying to say?
That's exactly right.
So our spirituality, our religion is distant from our culture.
Absolutely.
Another thing, if we were connected, self-determination would start from birth. with your parent. Because they would teach you why you're about to go to school. Before you go to kindergarten. What this means. And you may not understand what they're saying. But this is the purpose of going to school. But see, somewhere in your mind, when you get to that next grade, you're going to hear mama say, oh, that's why the reason you went to school.
That's right.
You see, at every phase, it's called the rites of passage.
That's right.
Every phase, 3rd grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, you're reintroduced to why I'm on this journey. Why am I spending these next 12 years doing this process? A lot of times we don't get that.
That's right.
And so by the time we get to 12th grade, we're just as dumbfounded about what's happening in my life, what I'm going to do in my life,
Absolutely.
as we were when we first started school. Because no one took the time to explain. This process is a journey that leads to a goal for a purpose that you might have in your life. You see, that's where we get lost. We're on our own instead of having it all brought together. Spirituality, religion, and culture.
Absolutely.
It all has to come at the same time. You can't have all of them separated and then try to piece them all together later on.
Right, that's right.
That's right.
You can do it, but the struggle is even more difficult.
Absolutely.
So that's what self-determination. Knowing your purpose early on and working in that direction,
In that direction. That's a, yes, Brother Jay. Thanks for that sharing that.
When James mentioned journey, I really value that word because where we all are right now, even sitting in here, this is part of our journey. And we're here today. Then when we leave here, we're going to wherever, a job or home or whatever, and we're on that journey. And I've noticed too, my journey have changed over the years.
Absolutely.
But the thing that I had, the question I had was that, it's like, how can a person really know if they're their true self? Because I feel like there are a lot of mind molders as far as coming up. Our parents, sometimes I've heard some kids say their parents wanted them to be a lawyer or a doctor. They didn't want to be a lawyer or a doctor.
Right.
They just wanted to do something else. They wanted to fix, to be like a bartender, but even though they would have been happy as a bartender, they may have went on ahead and went to college and everything to become a lawyer or a doctor for someone else. So I guess the thing is that, so how does a person really know that they are actually right now, presently, who they're to be? And
Absolutely.
And to just add to that a comment, I've thought of natural stuff just like a seed. It could be an apple seed. Everything that apple is to become is already a seed.
That's right.
Now it needs some help. It needs water, it needs sunlight, and it needs some little grooming, make sure somebody chop it down, all that, some protection. So even through life, as we're going through our journey, everything that we are to be is already in us. It's already there.
inside.
But this journey we're developing, and sometimes we get scared. We feel like we're stuck. But no, you're at that point, where we could be really being built.
That's right.
But you're not moving fast enough. But just stay in there, hang in there,
It's just like, but you're saying something so profound because
That's right.
even a plant realizes when the sun is not in its direction, that plant grows toward the direction of the sun,
That's exactly
where the
right.
energy is. You follow what I'm saying? It moves. And we were walking through the forest at Sweetwater Park or whatever, and some of the trees were lying in different directions and twisted different ways. And I said, what happened to that? Because of the trees, it didn't get enough sunlight, but it started moving in the direction where the sun was so it could have some energy to fulfill its growth, And that's what we miss out sometimes. We move away from the energy source.
Absolutely.
And then we find ourselves dehydrated and burnt on the ends and, just burn out. And we don't, and we are the genius of this, universe, we're supposed to be. We don't even take the time to say, well, the sun is over here. Let me stand over here for a few minutes. I can be re-energized. Or I can go over here and get something else, We allow ourselves to stand still and be mesmerized, and we got all the understanding we need right there with us.
That's right.
And we just get lost somewhere in that, Self-determination means wake up to what's there.
That's exactly right.
Wake up to what's there and move in that direction.
Move in that direction. Yes. Thank you, James and JD. Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're on this self-determination because I'm having, I'm having something like, let me see what word I can use. a discussion with someone, and this is a matter, a money talking about. And so, like at first, when this incident happened, I said, I didn't have anywhere to stay. And I was afraid I was all broken up and I couldn't get around. So I said, well, I don't want to pursue them now. And then, so anyway, God blessed me to be able to walk and stuff. And so then I started thinking to myself, I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, Melvin, these people did this to you from the backside of you. They really didn't care nothing about you. So then when I went and to find out why these people is not giving me my report, I went out there yesterday, so they told me, today they called me and told me, well, you didn't want to pursue the matter. But then, so I'm saying to myself, you got to be crazy, because this person did this from the back of me, and then again, I have that right to pursue the matter. And so I have to have, so now I'm understanding more what you're talking about, self-determination. If I let this person knock my brain out, telling me to go along with them,
Right.
that's taking away my self-determination.
That is
They're
exactly
trying
right.
to brainwash me because they did not, this right here happened in December, and they did not put the report in. So why that's their job, to put the report in, then.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna tell me, well, you didn't want to pursue it, but yet it's still nobody did, and that's your job to do that. And so I want to say I really appreciate self-determination, because you have to just sit down and, you know, like if you're weak, you say, well, I'm going to let that just ride on. And, you know, I just let too much stuff just ride on.
Right.
And so I'm going to have self-determination with this.
Absolutely.
There's a word that comes with that, and I want this to be part, it's called perseverance.
Okay.
Persevere.
That means no matter what, you can, if it's your goal, you pursue it. Don't ever give your power up to somebody else to pursue your goal.
That's exactly right.
You got a goal, you pursue it.
I'd like
Okay,
to ask
Brother
a
Jay.
question.
Thank you
Listening
for
to-
sharing that.
Yeah, listening to Melanie, when is it a proper time to receive outside validation? Because it seems like we want to be validated by a lot of the wrong situations, wrong people. So when is there a good time?
Yes, there
When we
is.
should be
There-
validated
And
by
it starts
outside?
from within. Okay,
Okay.
as you're climbing on the journey, as you're climbing, you are consulting from the inside.
Hmm.
And when you get to a point where you are consulting from the inside, you are asking questions from within. When those questions from within cannot be fully answered through your own mind mechanism, you can begin to ask those questions and begin to reach out. But yet, even with that, you're the one in charge.
Thank you.
Because you are asking the
Yes.
question.
Yes,
And that is a part of the
it's a
self-determination.
And see,
connection.
the question is just an
Absolutely.
inquiry. It's an
Absolutely.
inquiry. You still got to sort through that inquiry and say, okay, you might want to test some of it. You know, you should not be putting anybody else's ideas into your working situation until you test it. You trying to say you test it first to see if it fits your scheme.
Right.
If it don't fit your scheme, you push it aside. You may have to go talk to 10 other people to come up with a consensus of what works for you. So don't ever let one circumstance. You hear people say, "I want to get a second opinion." Well, you might get 10 opinions. But know that you're driving yourself toward what you really want to do, not what somebody else wants you to do.
So what you're saying is that there's a confirmation that you
Within yourself.
You know, in other
Absolutely.
words, you might have questions about where you're going or where you need to go,
Yeah.
but it's something deep inside that
Yes.
would say, well, hey, that don't sound quite right.
It don't
You're
fit.
telling me this, or you wanted me to do this, you wanted me to pay this. Okay, quite right. So
We call those
and then-
quick fixes. We call
so-
them quick fixes.
Absolutely.
Because I've had situations where I knew without a doubt, yeah, that's it. There you go, that's it. That's the answer. That's it. you know, I'm glad
And
I
it
waited.
comes.
You know?
This is really, really wonderful. Go ahead,
Yeah, this-
another.
I understand where you at when it comes to self-determination. Because it seems like every time I go get 2 steps forward, go through that door, it's shut in my face. And sometimes I gotta be that fire to ignite somebody who's supposed to be working for me and be behind them. And I gotta but I gave myself 2 years to try Atlanta. It's 6 months now. 6 months, if I don't get what I want, I'm going back home to DC. Because I already had my plan in motion. And if I don't get what I want, I already got it somewhere else. So I mean, it's like test of trials. You gotta walk through. You gotta deal with some of the stuff that I've been through dealing with in Atlanta. I've heard people say, "You more stronger than me," but knowing where my belief or my faith is, some people wouldn't be able to survive and go through some of the stuff I went through. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna make this public opinion. Well, no, public, what they call it when you just put stuff out there?
Public statement. That's all.
Public statement. Since May 2015, I've been living on the street. But if it wasn't for my God keeping me and dealing and going through and setting a plan in motion of how I want to go through, but it's got to the point, it's like, I'm ready to go back home. My family asked me to come back home.
Let me say something about that, Kevin. Sleeping on the street is not an end all.
Oh, I know it's
It's
not.
not an end all. But let me just say
I know
this.
it's not.
And as long as your mind is working toward a goal,
That's right.
working toward an understanding. See, these things are temporary.
I had to get up this morning. And I went to Starbucks and looked in the mirror, and I need to shave. And I had to just thank God. As cold as it was last night, I ain't dying my sleep. That's why I know whose I am, no matter what. As long as I do what I gotta do to get what I gotta get. And self-determination, I'm not I'm arrogant, I'm in your face. You gonna give me what I'm gonna get, or I'm gonna take it from you one way or another. Because I'm a child of the king. No, nothing ain't gonna be withheld from me. As long as I gotta do what I gotta do.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the, and I appreciate what he's saying, but one thing about it, the universe works off of order, okay?
Absolutely.
And also works off of choices. We make choices. And for example, I used to run a residential house. There were people who did not have a place to stay, nowhere to stay. But they were too choosy to stay at my place, hardly paying anything. Because they chose to be outside. So what I'm saying is that we have to really, like we were talking about, when do we get outside advice or advice from other people to validate us or to tell us where? Sometimes we're getting the message. Who heard the story about the man that was on the top of his house in the flood?
Oh, yeah.
And he says, God, send me somebody, save me. And then God sent a boat. He said, no, you know, God's gonna save me. So man went on. So that happened until the water went over the house and the man drowned. He went to heaven. He said, God, I thought you was gonna save me. He said, well, I sent a boat 5 times. And you rejected. So sometimes we really have to really ask, are we really doing what God is giving us or bringing us to do, or are we doing what we want? We are sometimes our worst enemies. We're our worst enemies because we make choices with people, with our finances, and everything else that puts us further into the rut that we're in. Do you know the children of Israel was brought out of Egypt by a man that was in the desert for 40 years before he went to get them? And then they wound up being in the desert for 40 years again because they was out there complaining. We ain't got watermelon. We ain't got chicken and fish and beef and all that like we had in Egypt. They call it flesh pots in the King James Version. They complained, but their complaining kept them in the same spot. They would not move. If you talk about movement from here to here to here, they stayed right here. We don't have watermelon. We don't have food. We don't have this. God sent them the type of food they needed, but they was complaining. So they stayed right there. And it took 40 years. So whatever limit that we have on a goal that we set, a 1 year goal, 2 year goal, 3 year, make sure our goal lines up with
Absolutely.
the ultimate spirit to connect to. Because it says, in all our ways, acknowledge God, and He will direct our path. And it gets rough sometimes. It gets hard. That's, we sometimes we can't see our way, but that's only a little point. If I'm gonna say this and I'm through. I'm from the country too. And I used to sit out on my back porch, and I knew the east was that way because the sun would always come up. I'd be about the only one sitting out there. I used to watch little animals move, snails and all that stuff. And we planted watermelons. And nothing would make me feel good than to have a watermelon grow and I could eat it. Well, we planted these watermelons, and a day went by, 2 days went by, nothing happened. So I'm sitting out there on the porch, sun come up, almost 10 days. So I go and dig. And when I dig, I was like, oh, I saw this. It was germinating.
Absolutely.
And it was under the ground. I didn't know it. So it scared me because I thought I killed it. So I tried to put it back under, and I think I did kill it because I dug it up before the time. You see what I'm saying? So there's something going on even when we don't see it. Even I said I was going to stop, but even when we die, we still are moving.
Absolutely.
How many know when we die, we're still alive? You don't understand? Let me tell you. When I tell you this, you'll understand. When we die, the body turns to dust. In other words, it's still, it doesn't, you can't talk.
It's just a shell.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is there's still activity going on.
Absolutely.
It's still moving. Anybody ever wonder where all the dinosaurs are at or gone? You see, but what I'm saying is they turn to dust.
Absolutely.
And then that dust is somewhere. It's somewhere. But what I'm saying is we're not looking for it. So what I'm saying is there's still movement even in death.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm saying.
And that thought is put in perspective in my last book, 24th book on expanding consciousness. Our consciousness have to expand to begin to see these greater things for us. I want to throw this out again. This will open up the conversation even further. First of all, let me just ask: do you find yourself sometime, and I know sometimes this is not a comfortable question, but do you find yourself sometimes, and should, by the way, speaking to yourself in terms of greater thoughts about you and your life? That's very important. I made that statement once, and a woman told me, this was about last month, she said, I better get away from you. And she didn't really catch my point. My point is that in climbing higher, when you find yourself in these different situations, you're saying, no, I'm going to go another direction. I'm going to reach higher. It's okay in that context, as long as you're consciously doing it.
Yes.
Knowing that you're speaking to yourself, so no, I don't have to be in this situation all the time. It's okay to climb out or climb higher. But I brought these questions, and then I'm going to just totally open it up. What was your life situation 15 years ago? All right, I'm going to repeat the 6 questions first, and we'll open it up totally. What was your life situation 15 years ago? Now, we can go further than that, or we can come closer than that. The second question is, what did you want to change about your situation that you found 15 years ago? How much better is your life situation now, 15 years later? What is your next state as you evolve? In other words, what is your next desire that now that you're evolving, what is this next thing for you that you see in your life? That's the 4th question. The 5th question is, what will be your situation 5 years from now? JB was talking about the journey. What will be your life situation 5 years from now? And the final question is, What will you do in order to get there?
And Dr. Frazier, I just want to start off by saying, you know what? A lot of us, especially in this room and programs like this, have run into what they call the disconnect. They throw a dis in front of your name. Disability, disconnect, disassociated. They put some kind of dis in front of your name. Not physically, I mean, not technically, but I'm just saying. Somewhere along the way, you became disconnected from the source, from your opportunities, because they're still there, and from all the things that could drive you toward that purpose. And it could have been somebody saying no. It could have been mama saying you gotta go. It could have been a number of things. But something took you off track somewhere down in this process. In that 15-year or how many every year process. Something hit you across the head, you became unconscious, forgot who you were and whose you were, and now you're struggling to figure out, okay, what happened to me? How did I end up this way? But something took your consciousness away at some point in time. And this is what he's asking you. What took that consciousness away? That drive, that determination, that I'm going to do it regardless spirit. I gave Mama Bessie a flyer the other day that says, I am self-determined because if I have to crawl on my knees, I'm going to get it accomplished.
Absolutely.
So something disconnected, something dissed us somewhere along the way that we felt, I can't do this any longer. We just gave up. Because if we were in the vein of our Father and He gave us all the tools and things we need to move forward in our life, then that's what we'd be on right now, a journey. Everybody would be opening their doors trying to say, I want him here, I want him there. Every school would be trying to get you a scholarship because they want your status. Everything would be happening the way you want it, but you need to go back and find out, where was that disconnect? Where did I fall off the boat? Where did things change for me?
Right.
Because that stuff ain't going nowhere. It's to wait for you to pick it back up and run with it. A star is a star, whether it's brightly shining or whether you can see it or not. The star is still there.
That's right.
You got to bring the light to the star.
That's exactly right. Anyone else on those questions that we threw out and the statement that James just made? Any other, your journey in terms of where you were 15 years ago, where you saw yourself, and how you moved away from that, and you had this desire, and then you moved toward the desire, and where you are now, and then how do you see yourself 5 years from now? Yes.
Well, actually, about 15 years ago, I was back at home, I wanted to be an artist, but since it was a little place, I thought coming to Atlanta, I was going to be able to be slingshotted into stardom real quickly. And it didn't happen, so it did discourage me about doing it, so I stopped doing my artwork for a while. But then I started coming to places like on the ground, and they started, enlightening me and lifting me up and making me feel better about myself until I started getting back into it. And now I'm starting to, reap the rewards from doing my artwork and doing basically a good job. And to me, that's
Absolutely.
a good thing.
And I mean, he's doing it too. See, the blessings will come when people see you working in your vein.
Absolutely.
Because since he's been here, he know the gifts he's got. I mean, the other day, somebody brought him a whole sketch pad, pens and pencils and crayons and something that probably cost $200 or $300. And they brought it to him as a gift because they know how hard he works toward this goal.
Awesome.
And people are already purchasing this stuff. So the journey may be slow, but sometimes we got to take our baby steps.
Absolutely.
We got to be solid in what we do, So the next time the big wind come along, or somebody try to say no, you say, what? I don't care, because I'm standing on my own, and what I got is what I'm going to get. And that's what you got to do.
Absolutely. Well stated. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Anyone else in terms of your reflecting back and now looking forward?
Well, 15 years ago, I was on drugs and symptomatic of bipolar. So I was really out there and out of control and couldn't manage money or anything. And today I'm stable and financially comfortable and doing well.
Awesome.
And doing well means your definition, not somebody else's.
Your definition.
But doing well because you know what your purpose is.
Right.
Can't nobody define doing well for you because you know what journey you're on.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So listen to nobody else's journey, okay?
That's right. That's a great feeling. Someone else, please share. Yes.
It's funny you said 15 years because I thought back to like what 15 years ago was, where I was. And it was kind of like, I was 19, I was in college, I was in a really good place, like I was really focused and it wasn't until I turned 20, that's when I contracted HIV. So I think for years I always thought my feelings about the work of being gay and stuff like that kind of helped, or some of the things that held me back. But it hasn't been until like recently when I started going to therapy and stuff that I finally realized that it wasn't the gay thing at all, it was really the HIV thing that was the thing that kind of diverted me from the path. No, just mentally, it diverted me from my path. And just knowing that is good now because it's helping me to get back into a place where, you know, I can start really understanding it and taking it into the direction I really wanted to go into. So.
And 5 years from now, you see yourself as?
A lot more happier, a lot more prosperous, and just making a difference, you know, in lives, in my life and other lives.
Absolutely.
And see, now, you've already started that because Leroy, Dr. Frazier, Mom Bessie, Sue, we're here, JB, we're your resume source. See, you need somebody to say, you know, he has been doing. You've done your 2/3. Now the 1/3 that other people can add is, we feel confident about what he's doing. That's the other third. But you got to do 2/3 of the work before people are going to put their stamp of approval on anything. You know what I'm trying to say? If anybody sees you working as hard as you are toward your goal, they're going to want you to succeed. Because you can come up there and help them do some things they might be trying to get accomplished. You see what I'm saying? How that pattern works? It all connects. You know, and there's not a person in this room, unless you just steeped in lack or limitation, and that's something that deals with self-esteem. We talked about that. If you have gotten that self-esteem to a point where you know you feel good about who you are, you can look in that mirror and say, you know what? Today is the day of the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Then you're on the right road because see, you're happy with you now. And can't nobody take that away with you.
Absolutely.
Can't nobody take your happiness away with you. So go to those people you see are trying to do what you're trying to do with the same enthusiasm that got you where you are. And guess what? They're going to say, you know what? You should have been here a long time ago. We're going to get you in here now.
Absolutely.
And we're going to watch you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you succeed. And I'm going to say this to Dr. Frazier. You know what, Dr. Frazier?